Hi, I'm Kevin Tharp. I live in Menominee, Wisconsin, and at the moment I am standing out in the middle of Lake Menominee in Menominee, Wisconsin. As you look around, you'll notice that a long way in any direction is ice because I am out in the middle of the lake. You'll also notice that my truck is parked on that lake. The reason I'm able to do this is because in this part of the country the temperatures get extremely cold for long periods of time and they don't get warm. For instance, this year from Thanksgiving until around March 1st, we only had a couple days that got above freezing during the daytime, and so it stays freezing for a long time and the ice is able to get really thick. So it's safe for me to be out here right now. In a couple days it will no longer be safe because we're getting up into the 40s and 50s now and the ice will start deteriorating really quick, and then we run the risk of dropping our vehicles or ourselves through the ice, and that's extremely dangerous and you can get killed that way. In fact, just as a word of warning, if you don't live in somewhere like Wisconsin, you should make sure that you never go out on frozen ice until an adult makes sure that it's thick enough and safe enough to hold your weight, because it's very easy to fall through ice, and when you have ice on the water it's very cold and hypothermia can set in really quick and it gets very dangerous. So you want to make sure you never go out on ice when it's frozen over unless you're positive and an adult has shown you that the ice is thick enough. Now we've got some tools here that allow us to see how thick the ice is. This is a drill. It's sort of the same as a post hole digger, only it has extremely sharp blades on the end, and this is designed specifically for cutting holes in the ice, and that is extremely sharp, and it allows us to shave the ice just like an icy machine would shave the ice, or shaved ice. So this is the first tool that we have, and that digs a hole that looks like that. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my auger or my drill and I'm going to dig a hole in the ice here so that you can see how deep it is. And depending on the conditions of the ice, I may be able to show you just how deep this gets before water comes through, because you have a hole and the water doesn't come through that until you hit the very bottom and actually touch the water. Now what I do every once in a while is I clear away those ice shavings so they don't keep falling into the hole. Close, so I'm going to show you how deep this hole is right now. If you look at my auger, you'll notice that this little black nut that holds the drill part to the handle is right at the surface of the ice. And so I come over here and look at that, and there's the hole. There's no ice in there yet, or no water in there yet. So that's how deep it is already. And my foot is about 12 inches or a foot long. So I can measure 1, 2.5 feet. So there's about 30 inches of ice there. Now let me go ahead and bust through, show you what it looks like. Out a little bit so you can see better. Okay, now I just broke through, so I pull it up to get as much of that shaved ice out of there as I can, and what you then have is a hole that we can fish in. Another tool that is important for us to have is a ladle. This is just like a soup ladle, except it's got holes in it that allow us to reach in and pull the ice out of the hole when it starts to form. Today we won't have a real problem with it because it's about 45 degrees, but if the temperature is below zero, then ice will continually form over in that hole. That's one of the first tools to have. Another thing that everybody brings out onto the ice is a bucket. In the bucket you'll have all kinds of tools, whatever you need, and it also provides a place for you to sit down. And that's where we store our stuff, and if we catch fish, we'll throw them in there. Other tools, this is a tool that will hold my fishing rod when I'm fishing, and I'll show you how that looks. Today I happen to have a minnow bucket with some minnows, and then I've got fishing rods that are just like fishing rods you would use any other time of the year, only they're much shorter. They're only about 2 foot long. And then this is what we call a tip up, and this is a kind of fishing rod that's used specifically for fishing in the ice. The other thing that I have and I won't need use today is a fishing shelter. This is called a clamshell, and what it does is it provides a place where I can sit, and this top section will pull up and over, and it'll create a protection, because on some days when we're out here fishing, it may be 0, -10, -20, -30, 35 degrees, and if the wind gets blowing especially, it gets extremely cold, and in a couple of minutes exposed skin you can get frostbite. So this allows for protection from the wind and cold, and you can put a small heater in there, and that will heat that area up because it's a pretty small area, and it'll heat it up, and it makes it so that it's comfortable fishing even on the coldest of days, because you're able to keep that wind out and the heat in. That is a shanty. That is a hut that people build, and they'll leave those as sort of semi-permanent dwellings on the ice during the winter. Today's actually the last day you're allowed to have them on the lake, so most of the people are getting their shacks off of the lake today. But you can see that there's quite a few people who are out on the lake fishing and hoping to catch those last few fish of the winter. Water, and this is a real common kind of rig where you've got just a standard short fishing pole that's really designed for ice fishing so that you can use it in that hut. And then you'll notice, I don't know if you can see it on here or not, I've created a customized spring bobber, which is a very, very sensitive thing that I hang off, a spring type thing that I hang off the edge of my pole, and I'm able to detect just the slightest of bites by watching that move up and down. And the way that people normally fish, and I don't know if I'll be able to show you this or not, is that you just slightly jig up and down to be able to detect the movement of that string, and you lower it and raise it so that you can then detect the fish biting. And I would love to be able to show you a video of me catching one, but that's not a guarantee. This is, after all, called fishing and not catching. Alright, well, I've been fishing most of the day, about half the day. I've got a handful, got 3 that are worth keeping. Starting to get close to sunset. That's when they really start biting. The weather forecast calls for us to start seeing rain, and as soon as it rains in the spring, you can't go back onto the ice anymore because it gets dangerous. The structure of the ice gets compromised, and it's not as strong, and you can fall through. One minute you can be on perfectly good ice, the next minute you're on very thin. So the sun is setting on our season. This will be one of the last few days that we get to do any ice fishing on this year, and then we'll go to just normal fishing, and you'll see boats out here. So that sort of wraps it up. I'm Kevin Tharp, and I hope that you've enjoyed learning a little bit about how we adapt to life in the very cold regions that we call Wisconsin.